dedicated to growing up as a TCK and how we're with it now that we're adults.
Hmm.
And today we're going to be talking about something that is very near and dear to my heart, more food. We're actually going to be talking today specifically about savory snacks. We will be
Hmm.
keeping sweet snacks for another episode. Um,
Hmm.
but savory snacks. Marcus, what's your favorite savory snack? I know that might be hard. I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, the one that I always come back to and the one I always miss is this Japanese one called kaki no tane or kaki pea, which is basically it's a very small rice cracker called a senbei, and it's mixed in with peanuts, and they're one of the best things ever invented. I don't care what anybody says. That like if you think of your favorite crisps, it's got nothing on this thing. It's just such a brilliant idea. It's kind of got the slightly spicy sort of flavor. It's savory, and it's perfect. Like it's just perfect as a snack. It's just like there's nothing else quite like it. They're just so good, and it's like every time I go back to Japan, it's the one thing that I have to find.
You
And the thing is, when
always have to
parents come over,
have.
yes, my parents come over, they have to bring them with them. Otherwise, it's not worth them coming. I'm joking about the last bit,
You're like, yeah, it's really
but
good to see you.
genuinely,
Where's my snack?
yes. I,
One of my favorite snacks of all time, and I've only recently discovered it since I started living in Buffalo, is something called all dress chips. Have you heard of those?
no, I haven't.
So this is a specifically Canadian flavor, and because Buffalo is really close to
Okay.
the Canadian border, we get
Hmm.
certain like flavors that only Canada can get. Like sometimes, not all the times, but sometimes we can get like ketchup chips, which are huge in Canada. Um,
Oh.
they're literally chips that are flavored like ketchup, and like almost all the different chip brands in Canada have it. Just like the all dressed chips, it's a flavor, and then all the different brands have their own like slight differentiation between it. But the idea
Hmm.
behind the all dressed chip is basically like if you were to have a sandwich and you had it all dressed up, this is what you would put in it. So it has like
Oh.
vinegar, salt, mustard, barbecue, kind of an oniony flavor. It has a little bit of a
Ooh.
garlicky flavor. It's like
Hmm.
sweet and savory, and oh, it's so good. I really can't even explain it. It's almost like eating a sandwich, but as a chip.
That does that does sound quite good actually.
It's
That does
amazing.
sound good.
When you come visit, I'm making you have all dressed chips. You have no choice in this.
Yep, fair enough. I'm willing to do it.
They're so
It's not
so
going to be as good as
good.
kakipi though. No, I'm joking.
I'm trying to think of other things that I like really really like that I know are quite unique. I know when I was living in Japan in Paris, I didn't really living with my family. We never really had a lot of
Mm.
snacks in the house.
Mm.
If we had snacks, they would be chips, and even then, we would be very careful about how much we had. My mom was like very my both of my parents were like, we don't really snack in the house. We have meals. Okay.
Mm. Mm.
Unless it was like we'll have some fruit or maybe like a cheese plate. But it was never like
Yes.
there's just junk food in the house. No. Um,
Mm.
but I remember when I lived in France, one of the flavors that I became obsessed with was poulet rôti, which is roast chicken, and it's very specific to France.
Yeah.
They have roast chicken chips. It is shocking how much it tastes like roast chicken. Like it really
Or do they do it in
does.
like a rotisserie as well? Like it's like
Yes, like the
yeah,
chicken that you
yeah,
have in a rotisserie where it turns around and the skin gets all crispy on the outside. It tastes exactly like
yeah.
that chicken. It's amazing.
Bit of a tangent, but the thing is that in Japan there was a Carrefour,
Oh
and I
yeah,
swear that they had one of those rotisseries in there, didn't they?
they
Or
did.
you could buy one. Yes, it's not just my memory playing tricks on me. Like, it's like, oh, that was a Carrefour in France, but not the one in Japan. But like, genuinely, they did have that. Like, and that's just immediately I was kind of going, I know what you're talking about. That's what it is.
You were like,
And
I
those things are
have the
amazing.
image.
Yes, and if it tastes as good as that does, then that's well worth it.
Oh, they are
Oh my god.
so good. It's very hard not to
Mm.
eat a whole bag of those chips. Um, they're just so delicious. I'm actually like kind of salivating just thinking about those stupid
Mm.
chips. I think some of the other chips that I really like got into when I started living here in the States was voodoo chips, which
Hmm.
I don't know if the company is actually from Louisiana. I can't really remember, but it's a very specific flavor. It's kind of similar to the all dressed chips where it's kind of vinegary, kind of barbecuey. It's
Hmm. Hmm.
spicy. Um, they're amazing. I'm pretty sure they're supposed to be like a Louisiana made chip, and then they started like branching them
Okay.
out and sending them to other states. They're not the easiest thing to find. That's why time I can find them, I buy at least 2 bags and I'll hide one from
Yeah.
myself so I forget I own it and I don't just like hoover a bag of chips and then open the next one. I like try and space it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I love those freaking chips. They were so good. I think the other chip that I really liked, and I know it's very popular in England, is the sea salt and vinegar.
Salt and vinegar crisps. Yes, every single brand has one of those. Like, there's because there are like different supermarkets in Britain, and some supermarkets will have their own special one that they have for themselves. Tesco, the supermarket Tesco, has its own kind of salt and vinegar crisps.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got everything from like Walker's is one of the famous ones in Britain. Walker's are the real McCoys. Those are the two sort of like slightly cheaper ones that you can get,
Mm-hmm.
and they both have that flavor. Kettle chips are some of the most famous
Oh, I
ones. Those are
love the kettle
yeah,
chip sea salt and vinegar. It's so
yeah,
vinegary. It like makes your
yes.
mouth like your face kind of puckered. That's how vinegary it is. Oh, it's so
I think they
good.
use. I think the thing that's kind of becoming popular is using cider vinegar rather than a sort of like a malt vinegar or something like that. Uh,
Hmm.
it does make a bit of a difference, but not that much. But I mean, I think it's cider vinegar is kind of like, oh yeah, it's a little bit more flashy.
Well, I think
Uh,
one of the reasons why that it's so popular is that when you get fish and chips, one of the things they always offer you whenever you get
so
fish and chips is they will give you a bottle of vinegar and you put it on the chips. And I think for a
hmm
lot of people, we think, especially here in the States, you get served a side of fries, you're getting ketchup. That is what you are getting.
yeah,
If you want anything else, you have to specially ask for it.
yes,
But I think in the UK, it's vinegar. Like if you are getting a side of fries, you are automatically getting vinegar. You may get ketchup.
and salt.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you may get
got to
ketchup.
remember the salt.
Some places will also automatically give you mayo. I know in France they
Mm,
do that. That's fairly popular. If you get an order of fries, you get a side of mayo too, because that's how the Belgians do it.
hmm
Um, and I've seen also fairly frequently getting ketchup automatically. But I remember when I went to visit London the few times, and anytime I went and got fish and chips, it was like the bottle was like automatically paired. I was like, "Oh, your
Yeah,
fish. Here you go. Here's some vinegar."
yeah. It is a real thing though. Yeah, salt and vinegar. It's a really, but it does work. I mean,
Oh,
it
it's
does work.
perfect. It's
Yeah, it
so
does work.
good. I love it. Um, I wanted to get into type of a savory snack that I feel is like the most savory because it's literally a form of meat. One of my favorites is squid jerky, which is really popular in
Oh,
Japan, and I had never had it until I went on a car trip with my parents. We were in Hokkaido, and we stopped at a
mm.
local fishing village, and they offered us squid jerky. They also offered me a box of juice that, because of the image on the box, I thought it was apples. Nope, it was apple vinegar. That was a rude thing to offer a child who was like,
Oops.
"Yay, apple juice!" Nope, vinegar. Enjoy your juice.
Oh, oh
I
no.
was so mad, and they were
I'm
laughing
not
the whole
surprised.
time. They were like, "Ha ha ha!" And I'm like, "You're evil. You're evil children."
It's like the words that would just come out of your mouth. You're just like, no, I can't say that. Not in public.
Nope, not in front of children. When I'm a child myself. But yeah,
Yeah.
I came to love squid jerky. It's so good.
Yeah, it's such a strange thing because you can buy that sort of thing in shops like it's dry squid. I don't know whether you could describe it as jerky, but you can get it and you can buy it in the shops and like in a convenience store, they have it there.
Hmm.
It's ubiquitous. It's like there's a lot of things. They have a lot of stuff like that. I mean, like they would have snacks with like kind of these like nuts. They would have. I mean, pretty much everywhere sells nuts as a snack, really, don't they? But I mean, like
Onigiri, you could
you'd have.
always get onigiri at a
Yes.
convenience store. Anytime you go to
Yeah.
in Japan they're called konbini, which is my favorite.
Yeah.
But any konbini has a bunch of onigiri, and I cannot tell you how many times I was in rehearsal at school when I was living in Japan. We would all get hungry all of a sudden, and we would send someone out to buy a bunch of snacks for the cast, and I
Mm,
always asked for onigiri because it's
yes.
so easy and it's rice, it's seaweed, and then a little bit of a filling in the center. So it's like a
hmm
just a good amount to like curb your appetite, but not totally fill you up. So if you want to have an
Yes.
actual meal later, you can.
And the thing is, it is healthy. I mean, that's the thing. It is. Well, I mean, it depends on what your filling is, but I mean, as you say, it is rice and seaweed, and those are going to be good for you. And then My favorite one was the ume one, which is like
Mm-mm.
umeboshi is a kind of pickled plum. I know that probably sounds really weird to a lot of
I
people,
I
but
I can't believe you like omeboshi. I hate omeboshi.
that was my favorite onigiri. Though I'm not getting another kind of onigiri. That's the one I'm getting because I'm just going. This really. I was in Japan at the beginning of 2020. I was fortunate enough to be able to go, and that was one of the things that I have to have one of those. I don't care. I'm getting one. It doesn't matter. It was so
I could
good.
never get behind it. I really couldn't. I tried
Oh,
so many times to have umeboshi, and every time I had it, it was like an instant like body reflex. So I was just like, I can't eat this.
I think the thing is that maybe it's one of those things that because obviously I was there when I was very small, so it would have been one of the things I would have been introduced to very young.
Mhm.
So it's probably partly that because I remember I used to just like go in and actually eat them. I
Mhm.
loved them so much I could just pick them up and eat them. That's how much it, and it's such a specific taste. I think that's the other thing. I would snack on that kind of thing. I don't know why, but I did. And the thing is that they do taste really good. I like them. I really, but they are very sour.
Yeah,
Very sour.
they're incredibly sour. There's no way to explain. It's basically like taking a lime, putting salt on it, and then eating the whole lime, but it also tastes like a plum.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
it's
think that's about as close as you
incredibly
can get.
sour and salty. It's
But the texture is how would I describe the texture? I'm trying to think of something else that's like
it's
it.
like a dried plum that has gotten a little bit more moisture in it. So it has a little
A
bit of a
bit.
bite to it, a crunch.
Yeah, but I mean the thing is they also the inside tends to be a little sort of disintegrate a little bit. It's quite soft on the inside once you get into it. I'm trying to think of something that would have a texture that's like that that people would know. I suppose it's kind of a similar texture to kind of a tomato almost in a way. Like the flesh of the tomato's kind of got. It's similar to that. It has, I think, once the tomato's cooked, it kind of goes a bit like that
Oh yeah, no, I can see what
in
you're
terms of the
saying with that.
texture.
Yeah. No, I would say
That's the
probably like a
closest texture I can
tomato.
think of.
Yeah. I would say
Cooked tomato.
the skin
Yeah,
on the outside has a little bit more resistance
more
than a
robust.
tomato
Yeah,
would. Yeah, I think that would probably be the closest.
yeah.
But oh my gosh,
Oh,
I loved
I want one
onigiri. They
now.
were so good.
Yeah, and you could get them anywhere, and you were like spending what? I mean,
100 yen,
I don't know what
100 yen, 100 yen for an onigiri. They would range. I think
you're
the
getting.
most expensive ones would be like 200, and that was usually because it
Mm,
had like actual meat in it or like a more
yeah,
expensive ingredient.
yeah, and like hyakuyen is how much in
A
US
dollar,
dollars? Is about $1. Yeah.
about
So in the UK, you maybe.
give or take, but it's about a dollar.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know what the exchange rate from Britain is now, but I mean, if it's probably maybe like 75p or 50p. I don't know. It depends on what the exchange rate is now. I mean, I can't remember what it is. It's been so long since I've had to work it out. But like, they're really cheap, and it's pretty substantial in terms of like. You think you spend 50p in Britain on something, and you might think you might get a certain kind of chocolate or something like that. This is a thing of like, well, I don't know how many grams it would be, but it's sizable. It's
I would say
sizable.
having one onigiri would be like having a I don't know how to explain it's one of the things with like snacking that I think is really important. Snacking shouldn't become a whole meal. Snacking should be
No.
like an in between when you get a little bit peckish
Mm,
between one meal and another. You don't want to totally fill up and you just want to feel satisfied. And I would say
yes.
having one onigiri can do that for you because it's rice, which is pretty filling. It
Mm,
has seaweed, not that unhealthy, and then it usually has some sort of filling that has either protein or like you said with umeboshi it's pickled, so
yeah.
it feels on the healthier side. I'm a huge fan of them. I miss eating them all the time. I think
See, that's one
another
of the things I
thing.
hadn't.
Sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, it's just a quick sort of thought because, like in Britain, everybody's kind of like sort of like over the past couple of years, yeah, we love sushi and all that sort of stuff, and this stuff is not like real sushi. But what it is like an onigiri.
Yeah.
What they should do is ditch the sushi idea and just turn it into an onigiri, and I bet that would take off because then you could go, yeah, this feels more authentic. But that would be such a good idea rather than the sushi. Just do an onigiri. It
Yeah,
would work. I bet it would sell.
they're so good. Even just the rice tastes good, man.
Mm,
Another thing that I really liked, and I actually came to love it when I was living in South Korea, was dried salted seaweed, which I remember was always called kim.
yeah, right.
And it was like it was very crunchy. Um, I think it was actually cooked in sesame oil, so it actually tasted a
Okay.
little bit like sesame. It was paper thin, So as soon as you bit into it, it would start falling apart and crumbling. It wasn't like um, seaweed, like nori that you get in Japan, where you're going to use it to
Mm.
roll up sushi. So it's a little bit thicker and it's not as salted. Kim is like wafer thin, super crunchy, a little bit of oil because it's cooked in the sesame, and then it has like
Mm-hmm.
actual salt that's sprinkled on top of it. That was
Oh
probably my
wow.
favorite snack I ever ate when I was living in Korea.
Yeah, because I remember like nori was one of those things that people would eat, and like that's from the Japanese perspective. I do remember that, and I really like that as well. Never used to have it that much, but when I had it, I really enjoyed it.
It's so
It's one of
good.
those funny ones you don't think about, isn't it?
It's a flavor that kind of has a little what the Japanese term is umami,
Yeah,
which is that like kind of proteiny flavor. Um and it really
like a
satisfies
mushroom would be like that.
yeah, like mushrooms. It
Yeah.
really satisfies that because seaweed does actually have some umami in it, and there's actually
Mm.
quite a few Japanese soups and stocks that use kombu, which is a different type of
Yes.
seaweed, as the base of the stock, and that's because it
Yes.
has that umami flavor in it, so you don't need
Hmm.
to put as much in the stock to give it that like robust flavor. So I think that's why
Yes.
seaweed chips or like dried salted seaweed packets are so popular, is because it
Mm.
satisfies that kind of craving for protein without necessarily maybe even wanting to
Yeah.
have protein. Oh, they were so good.
Yeah. It's because they're also talking about the seaweed one in Japan. They had like a using the word chips because I would normally say crisps being British, but yeah, we call them chips. Uh, they had like they were called kalbi as far as I remember, and they had like a
Calbee!
nori flavor. Yes, they were
Yes,
really good,
they were.
and the bags actually were full. They actually had more crisps than air. Just saying. That's the one problem in the UK. The bags are full of air.
I know. They do the same thing here in the States, and it drives my
Yeah.
partner and I totally nuts. But yeah, I was actually going to also mention jagariko sticks, which are these super
Mm.
thin potato sticks. I don't even know if they should count as potato sticks because they are basically air. One of the most popular flavors is what they call salad, and it has like flecks of
Hmm.
potato and like other things in it, and it's really good. Um, it's like eating a chip basically, but
Yeah.
in a stick form, and it's made out of potato. But I love those, and I also was a huge fan of. I even eat them now. Having edamame. I love eating
Yes.
edamame,
Yes.
especially when they're hot. Just a tiny bit of salt, not too much, and
Hmm.
I think part of it is also the fact that you're kind of playing with it. You have to eat it with your
Yeah.
hands. They're so fun.
You pop them out of the pod and all that sort of thing.
And it actually also kind of
It's
like takes you time to eat them unless you have them already shelled, which in my like to me that's like what's the point in eating them? I like
mm,
them already with the shell on it, and then you like pop the pod in your whole pod in your
mm,
mouth, and then you use your teeth to push the pods
mm,
out of the shell. They're
yeah.
so good. And they
I'm
really like it takes time to eat them too. So it like gives you a chance to like pace yourself as you're snacking so you don't like
mhm.
eat all of them at once.
Well, a lot of Japanese restaurants they bring them out as sort of like an early thing, as like an appetizer. You know,
Mhm.
like they just have them there, just like so you can eat them, and it tends to be like the first thing that you kind of get. I remember that. Of course, as being when I was a small child, I do remember accidentally firing one or two beans across a room once or twice. You know, when you try and squeeze it and it's just whoomp, and you're like, oops, wasn't meant to do that.
Sorry. Sorry. I didn't mean to hit you with a bean. But another flavor that I like, and thankfully you can find them super easy here in the States, is wasabi peas. Although I always found the wasabi peas in Japan to be way more intense. The few
Oh
times I
yeah.
had wasabi peas when I was living in Japan, they were like it was straight up like eating real wasabi. I find that here in the
Mm,
States, it's a little bit more on the horseradish end, where it's not that super intense
yeah.
spiciness that you get. It's a little bit more on the like it tingles. It's not like
Yeah.
when you eat wasabi, this is the best way I can explain it. It feels like it goes up your nose, through your
Yes.
sinuses, around your skull, and like down your back. That's what it feels like eating wasabi.
I think the closest thing I can think of is mustard that does that same sort of thing.
Oh, like English
Like if you've
mustard?
got a strong Coleman's mustard is the one they have in the UK, and if you were to use that, that's the feeling you get. It really blows your head off, and like so if you've got a blocked nose, best thing to do get some wasabi.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's interesting that you talk about the horseradish one because I think in the UK they actually do use horseradish instead of wasabi, so it's not actually wasabi.
Yep.
It's something they call wasabi.
They do the same thing here in the States.
Yeah.
Cuz wasabi is technically in the same like family as horseradish,
Mhm.
but like real wasabi is incredibly intense.
Yes.
It is
Yes.
very powerful. I love
You
it.
only need a small amount. You only need a small amount.
Yeah. No, you really don't
Yeah.
need much. If you get like sushi made by hand by an actual sushi chef, the amount of wasabi they put is actually very little because it's only
Hmm.
supposed to like slightly enhance the fish. It's not supposed to like
Yes.
kill your brain by eating it. It's just supposed to slightly enhance the flavor with the
Yeah.
spiciness. Um so yeah, it's very interesting when you come to the US or when you have like cheap lower end sushi and they give like huge
Mm.
amounts of wasabi and it's because it's not the like straight up wasabi, it is a more dulled version of it, so you need a lot more to
Yeah.
get closer to that experience.
Yes. I mean, the one thing I will say in Britain that they get right with the sushi and the little, because they sell them in little packets now and they can buy them, they actually do get the ginger pickle right.
Mhm.
That's like, you can't really snack on that though. I suppose you kind of would eat that with other things. So I suppose it doesn't really count as a snacking
Yeah,
thing,
I
but
wouldn't
you
eat
could,
that ginger by
you,
itself cuz it's really usually used, at least in Japan, it's used more as a palate cleanser in between what you're
mm,
eating. Um it tastes good though. I mean, if you really wanted to
yes.
have like a ton of pickled stuff, you could probably just eat it, but
Japanese pickles, I mean, generally, I think they're some of the best in the world. I mean, I don't,
oh yeah.
like, that, but they do things a bit differently. I mean, the only way I can think of to get something that's similar, you can kind of do it at home, but it's a bit complicated.
I
It's
actually
kind of a salt and vinegar trick,
yeah.
weirdly. But like if you get some like isn't really. I suppose you could turn it into a snack if you wanted to, especially in summer. But like if you get some cucumber, I can't remember how I did it, but I think I just put like a tiny bit of salt on the cucumber, and I got the Japanese mirin, which is a kind of what they call rice wine vinegar. Sometimes people call it like sushi. What do they call it? Sushi garnish or sushi flavoring, whatever. See, over here they call it that, which is a bit more complicated than just saying mirin. But anyway, that's just me. But if you put a little bit of salt on the stuff and then put a tiny bit of mirin on, that's kind of you kind of get the same sort of effect.
Because I'm
I
sure that they
think that's
use
how I did
meat
it.
in the brine.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Mirin is an amazing cooking agent.
that's
So
so good.
you could make yourself a small snack if you wanted to out of that.
Oh man,
Which,
I love pickles from Japan. And then one other one I wanted to mention because I truly don't remember if I had this, but I'm pretty sure I did because I lived there and it's like the snack of Guatemala. It's called Tortrix, and it's basically like
mm-hmm.
a brand. And they have all these different flavors. They have like sea salt and lime, and they have like spicy.
Ooh,
But they're like the chip of Guatemala. Like you go
okay.
anywhere, you will find Tortrix. And um, I remember when I was living in Guatemala, we never really got to try it, but um, just because my mom had gotten a stomach bug a couple times, so we were always very
Mm,
wary about buying food on the street. Um,
yeah.
but there were a lot of people who sold street food, and a lot of times they would sell things in literal like small plastic bags. So it was really popular. You would
Mm-hmm.
see kids with like paletas or like ice cream. They would have them
Mm-hmm.
in little plastic bags. You would also see juices being sold in plastic bags, and then just a
Mm,
straw in it. Um, but I remember getting a lot of seeing a lot of kids like grabbing those kinds of snacks and getting really excited about it, and me always looking at it, I
yeah.
was like, oh, that looks like fun, and then my mom would be like, absolutely, you're not allowed to buy that. I was like, okay, well, never mind then. um I do remember my mom, okay, this is a totally random memory. I remember my mom being, we would get visited maybe every other week by this guy who drove a truck, and in the back he had a bunch of coolers that were filled with ice
mm-hmm.
and all of these various fish and crustaceans that he had caught that morning. And my
Ooh.
mom would give him like a little extra to come and visit us on the days he would visit us early on the days where he would catch camaron, which are these really big shrimp. They're like tiger shrimp. They're
Yeah, I know the kind of thing you
huge.
mean.
They're
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
the length of your forearm. They're
So
enormous
it's like a
shrimp.
miniature lobster, like a lobster almost,
They're almost like a
kind of
lobster, but
in
it is a
appearance.
shrimp.
Yeah,
It is a
yeah.
shrimp.
I've eaten that kind of thing in Japan, but I don't know if it's the same thing. But yeah, I
My
know what you're talking about. They're
my
quite
mom
large.
basically bribed this man to come and visit our house early whenever he would catch those so that we could get the first pick. And my mom, every
Oh,
time she would get them, she would cook them that night. They were so good.
how did you cook them?
I think in just a little bit of butter, some garlic, and lemon. My mom was like, when it comes to like
Hmm.
fresh seafood, she goes very basic
Oh
because
yeah,
the flavor of the fish usually is so good. If you put too many things on it, you kind of mask the natural flavor. And then
yeah,
what's the point of getting a really fresh fish?
yeah.
So yeah, no, my mom would go super simple. She was also that way with duck. Whenever we would get duck, my mom
Oh no, yeah. You
would
can't do too
literally
much to
just
duck.
throw it in the oven.
Mhm.
No spices, nothing. Just throw the damn thing in the oven, let it cook, and it was perfect
Yeah.
every
No,
time.
that's how you have to do it with duck because it's got such a strong flavor on its own. That's
Mhm.
the thing is if you do anything to it, I think you could easily ruin it. Chicken, I think the thing is with chicken because a bit of a tangent, but with chicken, like we referred to last week, um, the thing is that the problem is it dries out really quickly because it
Mhm.
doesn't have the fats on the breast. So the thing is that you've got to the trick I was told is like you pull the skin up off the top of the chicken, then you put like butter and stuff on the inside of that. You
Mhm.
flavor it however you want, then you put the skin back down and roast it like that. Whereas with duck, because all the fat is on the chest, so it's
Yeah, it's
gonna
gonna have that
be
flavor. I
fine.
know a friend of mine who would, instead of putting butter, she would do mayo, and apparently it made the chicken like
Mm.
really moist and flavorful. Which I mean, that sounds great. I love roasting a chicken. I'll be very honest.
Yeah.
It's the easiest thing. As long as you know the temperature it needs to go in, you are literally throwing it in
Mm-mm.
the oven and not doing a damn thing. It's the best.
No,
Like you have an easy
it's
couple
great.
nights dinner, especially if it's just you or you and another person. You're not going to eat that whole chicken in one night. I mean, unless it's
I will eat the whole
okay,
chicken.
okay. Well, Marcus
I will.
Marcus will eat the
It's
whole
usually a treat.
chicken.
That's why. Yeah, but I'm a bit odd, so
Is that your snack? A whole chicken?
oh, I could do that.
Oh my
Yeah, yeah. I might go and buy one after this. I'm joking.
If you do, I want photographic evidence.
Yes.
um, but yeah, no, I like savory snacks. I think for me,
Mm.
I enjoy sweet snacks, but a lot of the times I find myself craving more of the savory stuff. I feel like it's a little bit more
Mm.
satisfying. Sometimes with sweet snacks, it feels like you just want to have more. Like it's very hard to get to a point with sweet snacks where it's
Yes.
like
Yes.
I'm satisfied. You just get this feeling of like I want more sweetness. Whereas with savory, I feel like after a bit, your body's like, I'm good. I don't want
Yeah.
more. I this is satisfying.
I think the thing there was something I was watching a while ago. It was actually a very good it's a series. I don't know if you can get it in the US, but it's on the BBC and it was called Hidden Killers in the Tudor Home, and
Mm.
it was talking about sugar specifically. And they said that one of the big problems that happened when people in Europe were first able to get hold of sugar for the first time, because they didn't really have a way of getting hold of large amounts of it before they were going over to the Americas and basically putting people into slavery and getting them to get sugar for them. But once sugar started coming over, the thing is that what sugar does is it has an effect like a bit, well, it has a drugging type effect on people, so it makes you feel happy
Mhm.
and that kind of thing. So the thing is, that's probably why you can keep eating it because it's kind of addictive because you feel happy, it induces that kind of thing. But the problem with it is, of course, tooth decay and then eventually diabetes and all that sort of stuff. I mean, I don't know how many people in Renaissance Europe got the chance to die with diabetes, but you know what I mean. But tooth decay, yeah.
There were probably a lot of
I'm
other
not even
factors
kidding.
that were killing them off before it was
Yes,
diabetes. Oh my gosh,
yes.
Marcus.
But I mean, but I don't know how many people would get it. But I mean, I don't know. But I mean, like, yeah, the sugar was a serious killer.
Oh,
Because in the medieval
jeez.
period, they didn't have it like that.
I
And
can't
there was
look
a
at you
one.
when you say that. That was so funny.
Sorry.
No, they definitely were dying for many other reasons that
Well,
diabetes killing them off. Um,
apparently one of the top things for killing people was drowning. Um,
oh
in
boy.
England, anyway. It's not funny, is it?
No, it's not, but it's a little funny. It's so long ago, it doesn't matter. Sorry. We were talking about snacks, and then we went on a very different tangent.
Yes. Well, there's another funny one because everybody knows Doritos, don't they?
Oh, please. Doritos originated in the United States.
Yeah.
One of my favorite
There
things is
was
actually going to other countries and seeing what flavors they have because
yes.
they sometimes have like really weird, interesting flavors that we do not have here in the States.
Yeah. The thing is that again is quite a funny one. Is talking about snacks particularly. Is that there's a comedian in Britain called Ross Noble.
Mhm.
I think in 2012 he had this joke where he had this idea where what he would do is he'd get a lot of his followers on Twitter to go and kind of like ask useless questions to like a big company or something like that. And one of the ones that they went for was Doritos. So this is all like stuff apparently that the people were sending, and somebody sent a message that said something like, "Dear Doritos, I have a much loved family pet moth who's recently been in a terrible accident and lost a wing. Do you think one of your cheese corn snacks could be used as a prosthesis, still allowing him to live a normal moth life?" And there was another one that apparently somebody said which said, "Dear Doritos, I recently purchased one of your packets of snacks, and upon opening it, I found that one of the snacks was broken. What is your returns policy?" I just think he's just going, why does Doritos have a Twitter account? Like, apparently they do. I think it's brilliant.
Oh man, that's so funny. Oh my gosh. I that's one of those snacks where like once in a blue moon I get a craving for Doritos.
Mm,
My partner became obsessed when we would go to Canada all the time.
mm.
Canada had a flavor of Doritos which you cannot get here in the States. Actually, you cannot get it in Canada anymore, which really upset
Oh.
my partner. It was called like pickle. It was a dill pickle.
Mm.
They had a dill pickle flavor
Ooh.
that is probably the best pickle flavor chip I've ever had because it was pickle, but it was kind of creamy. It was almost like a ranch
Ooh.
pickle hybrid.
Right, yeah.
It was so good. Even I was a fan of it, and I'm not crazy about pickle chips. Um, like chips that are flavored like pickles. And because pickle chips is a whole other thing here in the States. But
Right.
chips flavored like pickles, I never really liked them until I had those Doritos. And then one of the last times we went to Canada, my partner went looking for them. We went to multiple Walmarts, multiple convenience stores, nowhere had it. And finally, it got to
Ooh.
the point where my partner legitimately tweeted at them, was like, "What did you do? Did you get rid of the pickle chips?" And they were like, "Yeah, no, this is no longer a flavor." And he was devastated. He was devastated.
And that's the thing is that basically when Ross Noble, the comedian, asked the question, why has Twitter got why has Doritos got a Twitter account? Is somebody going online and going, "Ooh, I better find out whether those cheesy ones are still tangy." And apparently it's important.
It
It,
is.
it actually is necessary.
Especially
Oh my
for
god.
consumers like my partner who love those pickle
Yeah.
chips and they're gone. You cannot get them. They are no longer around. They are a deceased chip, and it is very upsetting.
Oh no. It's always terrible when that happens, isn't it? Like, I don't know. There was like, yeah, they kind of in Britain they kind of like get people excited about the loss of a kind of flavor of crisps, and you're kind of going, yeah, but it's not going to happen, is it? Everybody says that the crisp flavor is going to disappear. Big one was prawn cocktail crisps. Do they have those in
No.
America? Oh
No.
no, prawn cocktail. That's probably something very specific to Britain. But they have Walker's. I think Walker's crisps might be the only ones who make them.
Interesting.
But prawn cocktail is like it's like prawns with like a mayonnaise type thing on top of it.
Mhm.
It's like when you look at it, you kind of go, ugh, not really that keen. The crisps are like, I think it's a really acquired taste
It's
on that
interesting
one. But
because like the closest we have is like in the US a shrimp cocktail, but a shrimp cocktail here in the States has like this like tomato horseradish sauce that you dip the
oh,
shrimp
that would work
into.
better.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not
no.
mayo-y. It's like a tomato-based
Mm,
sauce.
yeah,
But
I
we
mean,
do not have that flavor as a chip. No.
no, because I remember like having to serve. Well, not well. I've been taking prawn cocktails out to people in restaurants and stuff like that when I worked in restaurants. It's like I'm just like, no,
You want to
just
eat
you
this?
can't. Yeah, but there's actually genuinely that you can kind of like buy little snack pots of prawn cocktail in Britain, in places.
Well, that's another snack you can have, some prawn cocktail.
Yes. The, since we were talking about sort of like seafood jerky earlier on, there is one fun fact I learned. Apparently, beef jerky comes from Peru. or initially that's because you have to dry the meat because there wasn't necessarily the way of like keeping food. The best way of keeping food was basically to dry it out because they're on top of the mountains and stuff like that. So you can't really um, make you can't really keep hold of stuff very easily. So they dry it out. And the word beef jerky, like the word jerky, comes from an old word for charqui. So the Inca invented it, and we've taken their word. So it's
Interesting.
actually an Inca word for but we call it jerky, but it actually comes from a word apparently charqui.
I just
So
learned something
that's
today.
I know I really like that fact though. That's why I find beef jerky suddenly becomes more interesting because it's like we're using a word that doesn't from a society that doesn't exist anymore in like I don't want to say serious terms, but it doesn't exist in the way that it used to.
Mhm.
Probably the best way of putting it.
Mhm.
A long forgotten empire, and they're still giving us things today.
Yep. Beef jerky. I love beef jerky. All right.
Oh yeah.
Want to thank you all for joining us today. Hopefully, we didn't make you too hungry talking about all of our favorite savory snacks from a bunch of different places that we've lived. If you enjoyed, definitely leave us a comment or a review anywhere that you are listening to our podcast. We absolutely love reading them. And if you want to reach out to us, we are on Twitter at Passport NECESS1, so Passport Nesse1. That is what we got, and that's what we're rolling with. But I
Yeah.
do want to thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. Bye, Marcus.
Bye.